Greetings, comrades. Let's just give a background to the issue of ZEP and the waivers. We've discussed in this channel how the ZEP came into being, but in this video, we just want to give clarity on how waivers came about. Cabinet took a decision on the 24th of November 2021 that it was going to discontinue with the Zimbabwe exemption permits. It then made a public announcement on the 25th of November 2021. At the time, it was Minister in the Presidency, Comrade Ngungubane, who made that announcement. And in the announcement, which is contained in the press statement that was released on the 25th of November 2021, it did not talk about waivers. We need to underline this. That statement did not talk about waivers. It said, I quote, ZEP holders should apply for other permits appropriate to their particular status or situation, close quote. Again, talking about ZEP holders, said, I quote, should apply for other permits appropriate to their particular status or situation, close quote. This had no mention of the waivers. Immediately, professionals, holders of ZEP who are professionals, immediately applied. I will cite two examples. One of the professionals who applied for a general work visa holds a PhD in media studies. He was working as a lecturer in a university in Western Cape. He is now in Europe. His application was rejected. A PhD holder in media studies applying for a general work visa was rejected. Another comrade of mine who's a member of the Zimbabwe Communist Party was doing a PhD at a university in KZN, applied for a general work visa as well. It was rejected. Not a critical skills visa, but a general work visa. We then said, wait a minute. If professionals, people who are lecturers, their applications are being rejected for a general work visa, what about a person who works at Pick and Pay as a packer, a domestic worker, and Uber driver? Would they be granted a general work visa? And the answer was no. Right? Because we've discussed the conditions of how to obtain a general work visa. Right? So their applications were rejected. Then the Minister of Home Affairs, after cabinet decision had been made and announced, he then wrote to every ZEP holder explaining the cabinet decision. The issue has been discussed in courts and we know what the court resolved on. But what is key is that in the public notice that the minister gave, dated 31 December 2021. If you read it, there's nothing about waivers. In the interview that I did with ENCA on the 8th of January 2022, again we spoke about this, that waivers are only for those that are professionals, but in any case, they have been rejected. Those of low skill were not considered. It is then that people had to write, were to advise people to write letters to the DG. After the DG and the minister had circulated a letter to every ZEP holder to make representation, we said, let us flood their email, respond to the letter, all ZEP holders, we advise them that they should respond and explain that they will not qualify unless government grants a waiver. So the granting or asking holders of ZEP of low skill to apply for a waiver, it was not considered in the initial decision, right? It only came after. It became clear, and there were court cases, that holders of ZEP will not qualify, the majority of them. And I've given an example of 2 academics that failed to qualify, right? It is then, after that, that the minister said, okay, let everyone apply for a waiver, to waiver the labor certificate and the SAQA, the South African Qualifications Authority, right? People applied. And the people that applied, the majority of them, to have those waivers were then rejected. They applied for the waivers, they were granted. But when they applied for a general work visa, they were rejected. Rejected on the basis that they do not have a certificate from the South African Qualifications Authority. So we've been asking, even writing to the new minister, to say, look, if we are saying a person must apply for a waiver, these are the requirements, and this person clearly states that they do not have these qualifications or cannot meet these requirements, hence they are asking you to waiver. You have signed a waiver, right? And they send this person the outcome that you have considered their situation and they granted them a waiver. But when this person applies for a general work visa, attaching the same waiver that you approved, you decline the person on the grounds that they do not meet the requirements, one of them being the certificate from the South African Qualifications Authority. Right, as I move to conclusion, Cabinet, through the Minister of Home Affairs, in terms of the law in South Africa, they can document anyone. The Minister of Home Affairs, on behalf of the South African Cabinet, can document anyone under special circumstances if an application is made and the minister or representation is made and the minister considers the representations that have been made, the minister can grant anyone a document, right? This is exactly what happened in 2010. Representations were made, right? Then Cabinet said, under special circumstances, we have the power to grant people permits, Zimbabweans and then 2014 people of Lesotho, permits to study, work, and conduct business. It was under special circumstances, after representations had been made to the South African government. If representations are made, which in this case have been made, that the holders of the Zimbabwe exemption permits cannot acquire or cannot qualify for a general work visa, the minister has the powers to waive all the requirements. And they say a person who is a holder of the Zimbabwe exemption permit can apply straight for a general work visa, and I'm going to grant it. Why? Because Cabinet says we cannot continue with a special permit. At some point, it must come to an end. And this was the decision. And if you read the statement by then Minister Mtswaledi, he says in his statement that on 21 September 2021, the Director General made the representation to say, let us discontinue with the Zimbabwe exemption permits. And the minister agreed. So the minister has the powers to say every holder of the Zimbabwe exemption permit can apply for a general work visa without applying for a waiver. It is the minister who decides on the process, right? It is not the law that decides on the process. It is the minister, because a general work visa, for one to qualify, it is clear if you are not a holder of a special permit. But because you have a group that for the last 14 years has been part of the South African economy, right? And you have gone up to the Constitutional Court. And it is clear that when you consult these holders of the Zimbabwe exemption permits on the impact that the decision to cancel or to discontinue with it will have, they will all point to the negative impact, right? You have consulted them in terms of what the court says. But the holders of ZEP will say, now that you have discontinued with the ZEP, this is the impact it is going to have, which is negative. So to avoid all this, so the minister has powers to say, okay, just apply for a general work visa and move to mainstream visa. Then in the next video, we are going to discuss what is likely to happen after you have been granted a general work visa. Whether it's a 4 year or 5 years, what happens when you then attempt to renew the general work visa? Please like this video, subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you are on TikTok, please do follow us. Otherwise, goodbye.